Well, today I am going to show you a major homesteading dilemma that I'm sure most homesteaders do come across, and our plan to deal with it. So it's early on the homestead. It's far earlier than we would normally film, to be honest, but we're making smoothies for breakfast before we get going on chores, and it's really brought to my attention the problems that we have with our freezers. These freezers are full, and that's caused, I'm not going to say mental issues, but it has certainly caused anguish when it comes to finding what you need when you need it. So once again, you're finding us down in the deep, dark dungeon, but it's not so dark anymore. Look at this. Where's the switch? Here we are. Let there be light. Even if it is grow lights right above the freezer. We have to say officially thank you to Marcy and Jason over at Learning Curve Acres for coming and helping us put in some electrics down in the basement like at least a year ago, and we finally hung lights. So we've gone through showing you how full these freezers are before, and I know it doesn't look too bad right now, but I'll tell you why in a sec. But look at that guy. We are full, and if you want to find anything in these freezers, you have to dig. And I have to be honest, I hate having to put mitts on to find my breakfast. So basically, one of the only reasons there is that gap in this freezer right now is because I had to remove tomatoes. I had to take out 40 pounds of tomatoes in order to put in more tomatoes. Now, they're not in here yet because that made me think it's time to do a freezer challenge. Now, what is a freezer challenge? Well, basically from now until we do the pantry challenge January 1st, we're going to try and empty some stuff out of these freezers, because not only have we got these two freezers, but we also have a freezer upstairs, which looks basically just as bad as these ones. We'll show you in a clip right now. And we have a freezer above the fridge.
Oh, and we have one above the fridge.
and then so I'll go upstairs and I'm like, and I forgot about the freezer below the fridge. Now this little fridge that we have down here basically mostly has cat food in it and things that are going to be made into chicken food, but there is a lot of other things as well. But our homemade cat food is one that I often grab out of this one, so at least it's slightly organized. So in our freezer upstairs we do have a lot of fruit, but we also have a lot of fruit in the one downstairs, and I did manage to find what I needed to make our smoothie. But fruit is certainly one of those things that it is great to chuck in the freezer, and it is great to have. To be honest, having 3 or 4 full freezers is not a bad problem. Where I find an issue is when we have all this new stuff on top and I need to use the older stuff that's on the bottom. So that's where the freezer challenge is really going to come in handy, because we're going to rotate everything and get that old stuff out of there before we start into January's pantry challenge. So here you can see, once again, a lot of tomatoes. And I don't want to waste these. The garden is still producing tomatoes like mad. As you can see here, they're on the ground everywhere. Fruit. Lots of fruit, which is wonderful. We even managed to get a great deal on some past date, I guess you'd call it, bananas at the grocery store. They work awesome. Frozen chunks so that you can just grab what you need and throw them in smoothies. I recommend this to anybody. First thing out of the freezer, fruit smoothie. Now, we don't want to actually use up all our fruit in the freezer because it is an amazing, healthy snack food, that sort of thing, and we like having a freezer full of fruit. But first step, getting some stuff out, because today we have a lot more going in than we've already taken out. So how are we going to tackle the freezer challenge? Well, let me tell you, I swore we were never going to get a third freezer because we didn't need one. We had to eat what was in the freezer. And we got a third freezer. And as you just saw, it's full. So what else should you do except for get another freezer? So we're going to get another freezer going. We have a 4th freezer that's always kind of been a backup, but we are not moving this into a permanent situation. So let's take you to where the 4th freezer is going to be set up. And you'll see what we mean in the fact that freezers have to be emptied so that this can work. This is where it's going. The scary falling down old garden shed, because it's the shed that is closest to an outdoor plug for us. This is why this is only temporary. we have till basically Christmas we're giving ourselves to be able to shut this one off, because we don't want to leave it running all winter out here. Now, saying that, once winter comes, we can leave this stuff in it and just unplug it. But we'll see. You're going to have to stay watching to find out if we can make this happen, because it is a lot of food, and we eat a lot, but maybe not that much.
So for anybody who's followed along with us sort of prior to this video, they're going to understand, I guess, the dilemma that we're talking about, because we put away a lot of food. But for anybody who's sort of just joining us, or maybe follows along a little bit every now and then, you might look at this and go, why are you plugging in more freezers? Just can it. That's because we are pretty much at our max as far as how much food we can right this moment. A, because we're pretty much out of jars. B, because we're pretty much out of space. And C, which is what's causing the dilemma, is we've still got things that have to come out of the garden. So, as Stephanie said, we're going to get this moved, and this is going to be a temporary home to allow us to preserve temporarily those tomatoes and a few other things, kale and some things that we're going to have to get out of the garden probably relatively quickly here in the next couple weeks before it gets hit by frost, so we don't waste it. So that is really the story of why this is only temporary. And through the miracle of brute force labor, we now have our freezer in here. So we've got to clean it up a little bit, get it into position, and get it plugged in.
Well, we managed to get an extension cord over here because we thought, let's make sure it runs before we go to all this effort, right? But here comes the moment of truth. Hopefully it doesn't blow up or something. This has not been ran for a while and just was manhandled. Aha! Victorious. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's humming. So you saw there, we have got the fourth freezer set up, and we're removing tomatoes out of the deep freezes in the house to get them out so that we can start to see what's really happening in these freezers. But as we were looking at them originally, you saw that pocket, or that hole that had already developed. And what we'd removed from there was 20 pounds of tomatoes and a bunch of chicken carcasses that I had frozen previously to make broth. And in the end, final results, we got 10 jars of chicken broth and 10 jars of curry sauce made out of those tomatoes. So all in all, that's a good start to emptying the freezer, but we've got a long ways to go. So stay tuned this fall as we really try and succeed at getting back down to only 3 freezers.